And I once heard a man pay a toast to his wife at table. You have to wait until the end of this, or it's a kind of a shocking toast. He raised his glass and said, "Here's to a face that would stop a clock and bid all time stand still to contemplate her beauty." That's Eros. Then came Freud. Freud changed Eros into the erotic. Then Eros meant sexy. And this became then the modern understanding of love. The Greeks never intended that that kind of love should so degenerate. And the new erotic love takes the fig leaf that once used to be put in Greek sculpture over the secret parts of man and woman, and it puts it over the face, so that the person is not loved, but only the experience. You drink the water, you forget the glass. And this is modern love, eros, erotic rather. Now we come to the second Greek word for love. And you all know it, everyone. It is philia, P-H-I-L-I-A. You know philia because you know Philadelphia. Adelphos in Greek is brother, and philia love, and hence Philadelphia is the city of brotherly love. Philanthropic, philia love, anthropos man, love of humanity. Philia is not a love of person for person. Philia is a love for all humanity, regardless of race, creed, color, simply because people are made to the image and likeness of God. That is philia. Now you say, but I can't like everyone. That's true. Because liking is in the emotions, in the feelings. But we can love everyone because love is in the will, and it can be commanded. Hence our blessed Lord said, "A new commandment I give you, that you love one another." You understand the difference now between liking and loving? I can make it a little clearer this way. I don't like chicken. Monsignor had chicken for dinner one day. Now, why don't I like chicken? Well, because when I was a boy, my father used to send me out to a farm that he owned about 30 miles outside of the city. And the tenant farmer, in order to get in good with the Sheen kids, gave us chicken in those days every day except Friday. So that in the course of my young life, I wrung the necks of 48,310 hens. At night, I don't have nightmares, I have night hens. I have visions of headless chicks squirming in barnyard dust, so I don't like chicken. But if you invited me to dinner and you had only chicken, and you would have been very embarrassed if I didn't eat, I would eat the chicken. I would love it because I could command myself to eat it. That's the difference between liking and loving. We may not be able to like everyone, but we can love them. We can get above our emotional attitudes. There was a novelist in Russia at the close of the last century by the name of Dostoevsky, who gave us an interesting story about this kind of love. It seems as if an angel went down to hell and asked an old woman in hell, have you ever in your life done a good deed for anyone? She says, yes. Once I gave a carrot to a beggar. Very well, said the angel. I am going to let down a carrot into hell. And you get hold of it, and I will pull you out. The angel let down the carrot, and the old lady grabbed hold of it. And the angel began pulling out the old lady. And, of course, thousands of people grabbed a hold of the old lady to get out of hell. Jesus, get off. This is for me. And then they all fell back into hell because there was no love of fellow man. I once asked a missionary in the Pacific Islands, what was the greatest virtue of the people? Well, he said, I can tell you the greatest virtue in terms of the greatest vice. It is the sin of kai po, the sin of eating alone. They would go without food for 3 or 4 days until they found someone to share it. That is philia. An East Indian by the name of Sheen, a Christian, wanted to go into Tibet to evangelize. He needed a guide to take him over the Himalaya mountains. And then gone up a short distance, and they were cold and tired, and they sat down on the snow. And Singh said to the Tibetan guide, I think I hear someone moaning down there in the crevice. The Tibetan guide said, don't be silly. We're almost dead ourselves. But Singh found a man in the crevice, pulled him out, took him to the village beneath, and was refreshed by that act of charity, came back, and found that the Tibetan guide was where he left him, frozen to death. He had not warmed himself by an act of charity. This is a supreme act of philanthropy. I told you about this friend of mine who was 14 years in the communist prison. And he was so much beaten by the communists that he developed lung trouble and tuberculosis and was considered at one time the sickest man in the prison. A new prisoner was brought in who hid in his heel a lump of sugar. He took the lump of sugar out of the heel in prison and said to the other prisoners, who needs this most? And they said, give it to Richard Wormbrand. It was given to my friend, and he said, I immediately thought of others who needed that sugar. I hadn't seen sugar in 6 years. But I put the sugar on the bed next to me. 2 years later, that sugar had gone the round of all of the prisoners and came back again to his bed. And then he started it on another round. Imagine all of these victims of the communist persecution in their adversity being so devoted one to another.